I'm done.
I didn't bring my computer. I'd like to follow the meeting, and I can follow it up there, but... Is that your personal? Yes.
I want to so get back to my...
I like my iPad. I'm much more comfortable with mine. Okay. I have to do this again. Well, if I should have brought my iPad Pro, and I could really talk about I only use it for genealogy. Somebody said, why'd you get such a big one? Because I can do two things at the same time.
I looked at the big one. I bought myself a My son says I made a mistake.
I think you did, because the neat thing is you can have two screens, but you can drag information from one screen to the other. It's pretty awesome.
Just make sure you speak in the mic when you say that.
He lectured me about how I cannot make electronic
How is Matt?
Don't do anything
Enjoying
until I
his
get
job?
my stuff up.
All right.
Wait patiently, Jim.
Wait. No, let me get my stuff.
Can I announce that we're waiting for you?
Yeah.
Can I announce that we're waiting for you?
No, go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah, because I can, the public thing, I'll get them.
You got a little time to get done.
All right.
Just pick up the mic and pick up the thing and everybody gets quiet. It's kind of fun. I call this meeting of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board to order. Ms. Surza, could you take the roll?
Dr. Beers,
Here.
Ms. Cook. Here. Ms. Hummel. Here. Ms. Minor. Here. Mrs. Taylor. Here. Mrs. Young.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here. 3.01, certification for closed session. Can I have a motion?
I certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, we, the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, while in closed session, discussed only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements as stated in Virginia law, and that only such public matter as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Surza?
Ms. Cook. Aye. Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Ms. Minor.
Aye.
Mrs. Taylor. Aye. Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye. Thank you. 4.01, approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Surza?
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Ms. Minor.
Aye.
Mrs. Taylor. Aye. Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye, thank you. 5.01, announcements, superintendent's report. Dr. Constantino?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This Thursday morning, beginning at 10 a.m., members of the Gloucester Coin and Relic Metal Detecting Club will search for time capsules on the James Blair property. I just read it. We are very hopeful that the club will find and be able to unearth the capsules that we have been advised are buried on the site. If you are a James Blair graduate, you are welcome to join us for the capsule search. We are searching for time capsules now because work is about to begin on the construction of the new James Blair Middle School. Beginning next week, there will be no access to the one-story portion of the building as crews begin preparing the area for demolition later this summer. Additionally, the back parking lot will be closed from next week until the end of July as it is reconfigured and expanded. Until late June, the entrance to the central office will remain the same. In late July, a new entrance for the central office will be opened at the far end of the building. From late June to late July, central office departments will be located at several schools in the division while the conversion of the building is undertaken. As the project moves forward, we will post department locations and project updates on the division website and throughout social media. And finally, I encourage all families to continue to participate in a number of spring events we have. I know that we have additional musicals coming up. It's time for the band and chorus and orchestra season, and lots of plays and activities at elementary schools. So just another note of encouragement to check our website, check the calendars, check your school calendars, and enjoy all of the activities the spring has to offer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do any board members have any announcements?
Just a reminder that the final meeting on Pathways is May 17th at War Hill High School. I believe it's at 6:30, like the other parent meetings.
Any others? The couple of things going on. I went to one of the Pathways, and I thought that was Dr. Carroll did really well with that. I had the privilege of going out to War Hill. I know Dr. Beers was there for the Jeopardy showing. Yeah, Dr. Beers and I were there.
I know, she made it to the second round.
She made it to the second round because she had $5,000 left over, and then she made it. I don't think she made it to the finals. She made it to the semifinals.
No, she went out last night.
So it was great to see her there and her enthusiasm, and the students that were there from War Hill for their enthusiasm. As Dr. Constantino mentioned, the musicals this week is War Hills, Beauty and the Beast. I'll be there Thursday, I think, or Friday. You're going Thursday, I think.
Thursday.
So always a good thing to go see. Next week is the retirement ceremony for our WJCC teachers that have chosen to retire. It's one of my favorite events of the year. Unfortunately, I will be out of town, and so Mrs. Cook will be standing in for me very ably, I'm sure, on that. So I wish all of our retirees the best in the next chapter and phase of their life, and we will certainly miss them here. So anything else? That brings us to 6.01, citizens' comments. Dr. Beers?
It is at this point in our meeting where citizens are invited to address the school board. Those citizens desiring to speak have submitted speaker cards to the clerk prior to the start of tonight's meeting. When a speaker's name is called, the speaker comes to the podium and states his or her name for the record and directs his or her comments to the chair of the board. In order to promote a listening and respectful environment, please avoid applauding, verbal outbursts, or any other type of demonstration when the speaker is addressing the school board. Personal matters are not considered in public meetings. The school board requests that all speakers refrain from making any reference to specific individuals in any form or fashion. The school board's role is to listen to the speaker rather than to respond to his or her comments. Each speaker is allocated 3 minutes to make his or her comments. The school board asks each speaker to respect this time limitation. Time may not be yielded to another speaker. Your acceptance and adherence to these guidelines will be greatly appreciated. And my notice is completed.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Ms. Cook?
The first speaker is Arvin Alay. I hope I got that right, Arvin.
You're great.
So just into here? Okay. My name is Arvin Aleg, and I'm a 2015 graduate of the College of William & Mary, and I currently work at the college's Office of Community Engagement. While I'm not a direct product of Williamsburg-James City County, the Williamsburg-James City County School District, as a concerned citizen of color, the glorification of Rawls Bird, in light of his troubling attitudes, is extremely problematic. Rawls Bird not only held racist views, but he utilized his position of authority to strictly enforce them. His segregationist agenda was crystal clear, having been corroborated through many oral histories and interviews. In the 21st century, educators are expected to adhere to ideals of multiculturalism and inclusion. Is there not something twistedly ironic about naming a school, an elementary school, that's 44% non-white, after a man that espoused the superiority of whites, who would threaten students that dared question the status quo of segregation, What sort of parents would proudly send their children to a school named after a man whose own pedagogy entailed grave violations of social and educational justice? Rawlsburg Elementary School represents an interesting project in how we approach memorialization. Typically, we memorialize in order to attribute societal and cultural value to important figures. By many accounts of the day, Rawlsburg was the quintessential public servant, having held the role of superintendent for nearly 40 years, and at the time, it may have seemed perfectly all right to utilize his legacy as a namesake. However, values of society have evolved to a point where we can no longer justify the valorization of a man with such obtuse worldviews. Coupled with the irony that his namesake is a school, and Byrd defended inequality in schools, it's especially easy to discern the morally right course of action. We must work to rename this elementary school as soon as possible. It's a small but necessary step in confronting a legacy of discrimination and hatred in Williamsburg that spans over 3 centuries. Renaming the school will not magically erase Byrd's contributions to the WJCC school systems, nor will it erase historical records of his service. But to retain his name, even amidst revelations of his jarring sentiments, sends a chilling message to those people of color, as well as anyone who values basic human equality and dignity. One that states that we, as the Williamsburg community, prioritize racist tradition over justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Edith Hurd, please.
Good evening, school board.
Evening.
My name is Edith Hurd, and I'm a Williamsburg resident. And I'm here tonight to ask you all if you would put us on your agenda for the 24th of May. This is a subject that we need to sit down together and talk about and not have a big dispute over it. So I'm asking, I've already emailed the board asking to be on your agenda because according to your policy, you need a 2-week notice. And I think my notice is in, and we're asking now that you put us on your agenda for the 24th.
Thank you, Mrs. Hurd.
Lois Hornsby, please.
Good evening, everybody. It's certainly old home week for me. I told Julie Hummel when I asked her when the next school board meeting was, because I was so pleased to see that some of the positions had been changed and that, like this afternoon, I watched the whole school board meeting from April 17th, I guess it was, when a lot of these people were there, and it's just so, I just wanted to come and express my appreciation to the school boards and Dr. Constantino for adjusting somewhat to the positions when challenged by the Lafayette Boosters. I was so surprised when I went to the Wizard of Oz, which was a wonderful production, which Lafayette's been doing for years, and they were handing out parent papers to contact you all, and you responded. And so I just wanted to thank you because I think you come up with some good solutions. And so today, I watched the meeting from the 19th of April, and it was fun to see Dr. Beers espousing curiosity and Mrs. Young questioning block scheduling. And these are all things that are important for people to do and for everybody to hear. And I must say that watching it on television was a lot easier than here tonight because you're just front and center. And so just thank you for the changes. I think that my comment about construction is that I wish that we could adapt the Rockefeller mystique that Williamsburg is known for, where he put money into restoring things rather than demolishing. And so I was so pleased that Matthew Whaley was restored and Bruton Heights was restored. And that makes me think, could I have a minute to speak about the Rawlsburg situation?
Sure, you have 35 seconds left.
I knew Rawlsburg. He was a neighbor of mine. And my first acquaintance with him was when Stella Nyman and Ella Mae Parker and I went to the school board meeting in a little cubicle upstairs over the theater to ask for more books for Matthew Whaley and Bruton Heights. Bruton Heights was underway then, doing a good job. And he just didn't believe in desegregation. Is that what I mean? Yeah. And so I never knew that he said such rude things to people. But, so I did know that he didn't want to remain superintendent of a desegregated system.
Thank you, Mrs. Hornsby. I appreciate that.
But I knew that he had consolidated the James City and Williamsburg, which was a big deal at that time, because they didn't think it'd be good for each other to merge schools.
Yep. Thank you, Mrs. Hornsby. Your 3 minutes is up. I appreciate you coming out. It's
Yeah.
always good to see you.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
I was speaking about this to my family, and they said, well, why don't we just call it, instead of Bird, Brookhaven School, or something that's geographic and not controversial.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank
Hornsby.
you.
Judy Nisich, please.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be back. I want to say I've got some positive feedback from the time I was here in March, and I appreciated that you recognized that we need to be addressing the morale and the support of our employees. That being said, I have to tell you, you would never, ever, ever dare to ask a teacher to teach a classroom of 30 students, 15 of whom are disruptive. Yet every day you ask drivers to go down the road, 30 to 60, 15 of whom are disruptive. And we can't set them out in the hallway. We cannot send them to the principal's office. We cannot call the resource officer. So what we have to do is write referrals, and we need support on those. But if we have a run where the problem is so bad that we're concerned about not only our precious cargo safety, but our very own, we might opt to return to a school. And I have to tell you, when we return to school, we're not met with open arms. They're not just that happy to see us. And the first thing they do is they talk to the student, and 95% of the time, they will put that student back on the bus and ask us to write a referral, which sort of disappears into a never-never land for some extended period of time. As a matter of fact, the very morning after I was here last, I had to write a referral. There was a serious violation of safety procedure. I said that on my referral, and I said I have the film to prove it. So I gave them Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So the next Monday, I started asking what was the outcome of my referral. 2 weeks went by. Then I got my supervisor to start inquiring, and 2 more weeks went by. 4 weeks and 2 days after I submitted this, not counting the 3 original days that I gave him for action, I found out that the student had received 3 days of detention, not knowing when this 3 days of detention was. But we're not so naive as bus drivers and other support personnel that we don't recognize that there's a numerical trail to every, paper trail to everything that goes on in this school division, from number of students, students on bus, students going to VOTEC, it doesn't matter. But not a school in this school division wants to have that numerical paper trail crown of having the most bus suspensions. And for the most part, they will avoid it like the plague. And this is not fair to us as drivers, our precious cargo, and the one numerical thing you're going to have to recognize is, with our safety as drivers, we're worth more than what you can possibly pay us, but it's not the money that keeps us here. We love the job, we want to be here, but if we do not have respect and support for the job we do, there will not be enough money in the budget to keep us here. I appreciate the schools that do support us, but I'm sorry to say it's not all of your schools. So we're looking forward to maybe having a task force look into this it's not just our department. You need to be looking at all of your support personnel. But no place is as critical as the job that these drivers do going up and down the road. We just have to fight the public to get to where we need to go safely.
Thank you, Mrs. Nysich, and thank you for everything that you do for our students.
Frank Smith, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Frank Smith. I live in James City County. I come before you this evening supporting the grassroots initiative spearheaded by local African Americans who were born, reared, and educated here. And you heard their support, their comments in regards to why they would like the name to be changed, and I support that. The other thing I'd like to share with you as a result of their initiative, which is great that local people spearheaded it, other groups came on board that you heard, like the NAACP, all together, and others, including my fraternity, Sigma Pi Phi. Earlier, Oscar Blayton, who is the current president, spoke to you. I'm here to talk again in regards to my fraternity. We are the oldest African-American fraternity in the United States and reported to be in the world. I am a chartered member and the first president of the local chapter. Sigma Pi Phi consists of 35 African-American men, very distinguished men who distinguish themselves in their respective careers and professions. Many of us served in corporate America, Fortune 500 companies at the highest level, reporting to the chairman with national and international responsibility. At our last meeting, we voted unanimously to support this initiative and to bring the full force and resources of our organization in that support. In February, Historic Triangle launched an effort by first ringing the bell and then moving forward with an initiative to bring about healing and reconciliation and healing, I should say. Changing the name of Royal Bird School would be a tremendous step in bringing about that healing. I'd also like to share with you that as a result of that effort, many of the African Americans in this community support this effort tremendously, and I'm quite sure if you haven't heard from them, you will. And I look forward to, and hopefully that you will, accept the request to review the name change, discuss it, deliberate it, and bring about a favorable resolution. We are prepared to assist in those discussions and deliberations. We also have some suggestions for name change for your consideration, and we look forward to working with you. If you have not, I'd like for you very much to get back to us through Lafayette Jones and Edith Hurd regarding whether or not you will deliberate upon this issue and share with us the appropriate next steps, because we need to know that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Jennifer Tierney.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Tierney, and I'm here to support the renaming of Rawls Bird. When my husband and I moved here 17 years ago from California with our 2 children, we did our research and we chose Rawls Bird as the school we wanted our children to go to. And then we bought our house because that's what we wanted for our kids. And it's a decision we never regretted. It was a wonderful experience. I remember the day my son in first grade was convinced that I was not at home and that he was going to get off the school bus to an empty house. And his first grade teacher drove behind that bus to our house and came to the door to make sure I was home to make him feel better. Those are the experiences we had at Rawls Bird, and those are the values that our children learn at Rawls Bird. So I believe it's time to give the school a name that reflects those values, and that when our children walk into that building, none of them have to look up and see a name of a school that says to them, "We are not welcome." Let's give that school a name that says, all of our children are welcome here, and this is the best environment for everyone in this community to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Tierney. Is that all of our speakers for this evening?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Moving to 7.01, personnel actions. We have 2 personnel actions tonight. Can I get a motion for approval of the personnel actions as presented during closed session?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the personnel action items that were presented in closed session as the first item of this agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion about the personnel package? Ms. Souza?
Mrs. Taylor? Aye. Mrs. Young?
Aye.
Dr. Beers?
Aye.
Ms. Cook?
Aye.
Ms. Hummel? Aye. Ms. Minor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye. Can I get a motion regarding the appeal that we heard this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chair. In the matter of the employee grievance, which the board considered in closed session today on May 10th, 2016, I move that the board uphold the superintendent's decision.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Ms. Souza?
Mrs. Young?
Aye.
Dr. Beers?
Aye.
Ms. Cook?
Aye.
Ms. Hummel?
Aye.
Ms. Minor?
Aye.
Mrs. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye. Brings us to 7.02, capital improvement plan process.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've talked a long time about ways to improve our capital improvement plan process, and as a assistance for board members who came on in January, this discussion really did begin, I think, last fall when we finally made the change to moving the CIP. There were some board members who wanted to look at process. There have been board members since January that have wanted to look at process and also get a timeline out there so we know exactly what we're doing. So the administration has presented for your consideration a capital improvements plan process, which is different a little bit, and I think strengthens the process we already have, largely because we're ensuring that the committee is well represented of the people who need to be at the table. We also are looking to invite citizens who have this kind of knowledge that might assist us with the capital improvement plan. You'll see a little bit of what would be charged to the committee, and then you will see a timeline that really will begin soon and ultimately culminate with this report, the superintendent's proposal coming to you in the fall. But there's also an opportunity for community input. There's also an opportunity for discussions and recommendations. There's also an opportunity to change this timeline if it doesn't meet the board's needs. But this is something that I thought we would put on the agenda so that we could formalize the fact that we are moving in this direction to improve our plan and improve our process, continue to improve our process.
Sure. So are you looking for a motion and approval of this tonight, or?
Well, I've heard different comments from different board members about what they would like. And so I put it on the agenda so that if the board wanted to vote, they could vote on it. This would normally be an operational issue that the superintendent's office would take care of, but because we've had some really good public conversations about how we can make it better, I felt as though that it was worth placing it on the agenda. If it's the board's desire to simply say, we like it and go for it and not vote, that's okay too. We're just trying to be upfront and make sure everybody, we sent a draft of this to you a couple of weeks ago. And I just want to make sure that it's at least discussed publicly.
Okay, I'm gonna stop talking now. Anybody want to carry?
Yeah, I would love to discuss this plus, discuss it as a group. I'd like to stop short of voting on it because I think it is an administrative function, but I think it's a really good opportunity for us to have a hearty discussion about it. So but I'm happy to support my colleagues if they, think otherwise. But I think at the end of the day, I appreciate the administration sharing this with us. And I really think it's a natural next step to the work that was started last year with the Faithful and Gould study. So I think it's kind of a progression forward, and so I appreciate that. I particularly like the proposal to include the planning commissions and by extension the planning staff, because I think that'll make it a stronger process moving forward. And once we adopt whatever CIP we adopt, it'll make our jobs easier to advocate for that because there will be less of a learning curve. So I think that's tremendous. I also like the mention of carrying over and reevaluating items that aren't funded, so that if it's ever necessary to remove an item from the CIP, that it's done so for a documented reason that is not related to funding shortfalls. I think that's an important, great statement to make, because after all, it's our responsibility to put forth a budget, including a CIP budget of need. And sometimes it's not possible to meet that need, but I don't think that means we should, I think we should record it consistently from moving forward. So again, I am grateful for the opportunity to talk about it with each other and in the public view. And so I think that was really a good idea to put on the agenda, but I do think that it's really part of the superintendent's responsibility. I think it's one of those how, when, and where, and by whom issues, as opposed to the why, which is kind of where we live. But I'd like some clarification, Dr. Constantino. So it is my hope that this is a holistic approach that looks at WJCC spaces, including the need to potentially repurpose existing space, expand perhaps existing spaces, and/or build new facilities. So I hope that it's inclusive of repurposing, expansion, and new. If
I can respond to all of that. In terms of expanding, the Faithful and Gould report deals with maintaining what we have. It doesn't deal with things we might need. So obviously one of the goals of this committee is to begin, and we'll be working in conjunction with the county as the county strategic plan is finished. What is it that we need? What do we need to look at in terms of expansions or buildings or any of that nature? The notion of repurposing, honestly, ma'am, I didn't think about that, quite frankly, and that's a good suggestion that we should add to this, because we probably will be faced, and are probably faced already with, we've had requests for, can we take a look at this and figure out what we're going to do over the next 3 years? And honestly, that's probably a good task for this committee. So I'd have no problem in adding that notion of not only looking at where we're going, but can we repurpose something that we have into another use? So yeah, that's great.
Because I think we've heard about some, interest in repurposing, but it isn't just one school that has community organizations using space in our schools. So just, as our educational needs continue to grow, just looking at that holistically,
Yeah,
I think would be great.
I think, we have the after-school programs in all of our elementary schools run by the county, and a large number of community uses and other uses of the building. So yeah, thank you. I'm thinking about additional space and what's going to happen in 10 years, but the notion of repurposing and some of the requests that have come in, I think that's a good idea.
Any other board members?
Yeah, I just would like to end here. I noticed that in the first part under the process improvement proposal, which I think this is a step in the right direction, but it talks about 3 community members with relevant experience will be full members of the committee. Will these be members of the community that will be invited to be part of it?
Yeah, our thinking at the moment is looking for expertise in building and construction, some expertise. For example, if the college had a facilities expert that would be willing to assist us in looking at a number of issues that we might have, that would be somebody that we would consider asking. Or if a local, if there were local people who had expertise in areas that are fundamental to the CIP, that's where we think, we've not done that before, and we think that's a good addition.
I think that's excellent, too. It should be involved. Okay.
Any other board members? Julie?
So what about, I think I had made a comment about school board members also being, or a few school board members being part of the CIP committee.
When I sent out the note, and I got 2 responses back from 2 board members, one who thought it was a good idea to put a board member on, and one who didn't see the necessity. So I'll let you discuss that.
Okay, you can can kick me under the table, Julie. So, back to, I think, the idea that this is really a solidly administered, I think the ball gets tossed to us when we vote on it, and then we carry it down the field a little further and do that advocacy piece once we've adopted it and it becomes ours. But up until that point, I think it's the administration's responsibility to do that work. And then when the presentation comes to us, that's when we ask the what, where, why, how much questions, and then.
So you would see it more in the community input section, that we would be, the September through October timeframe.
No, actually, I would see, well, right, so during that back and forth with
The back and forth, so
Yeah,
that,
so
so
we
that
would-
we're here hearing, we are a part of the process to hear what the community is saying.
Right.
To be actively a part of that.
Right.
So that we've got our finger on the pulse of what the needs are in the community.
Right, and so responding to what we're hearing from the administration and from the community, once we take that vote, then I would see it would be very much our responsibility to own that collectively and advocate for it in the community.
And I will say, I'm sorry that September, October, November is a little squishy in the middle. We don't know what we don't know. And so we wanted to make sure that if we promise September and all of a sudden it's August 31st and we're not ready, we don't know where this is going to go in terms of details, in terms of what needs to be done. So we've kind of given ourselves a window in some of these dates until we go through the process once. I think we can tighten it down a little bit more next year.
I just have a question. Okay, Julie, were you for having somebody from the school board on this committee? Can you give us your reasons?
Just for my purposes, I was really shocked as a school board member, through the whole CIP process for me, because I was brand new. I couldn't believe the lack of documentation, some of the
Yeah.
stuff that was just kind of surprising to me. That would be part of any kind of a capital improvement process. That's all. So I was more of being a part of a committee from the very beginning of the process, to be just more of a watchdog to make sure that.
Well, maybe not so much a watchdog, but maybe liaison is more appropriate.
That would be a nicer way to put it.
It is nicer, isn't
Thank
it?
you. It's a nicer way.
But I kind of agree with Julie, because I think even though our role here is governance, it's nice to have people who are aware of what the process, how it's progressing. And even if that person just came and gave us a brief, 1-minute report, at least we would have an understanding of how things were going and would have their take on that. Because I agree with Julie. I mean, last year when this was adopted, we weren't members of the school board at that point, but we are held accountable for
Right.
it. And the CIP book that we got and everything was wonderful, but there was a lot of things we didn't understand about the background. So I would really like to see somebody on this committee who shares that interest participate in that.
Jim?
Yeah, I especially like the establishing a clear criteria.
Right.
And so that we know, and I think the other thing, having a process more like this, it will force us to do some serious thinking in terms of priorities. And so if people are aware of the fact that, yeah, we have considered, those things have been considered, and we can't do, we can't do everything, but, and coming up with explanations for why we're going in a particular direction, or, if we're going to do, I think that's very, it's very important to do that. So anything that'll sort of open that up to the, to the public, or people out there, so they really understand that, that we listen, but hard decisions have to be made, and it's based on what our resources are, and a plan. And I think this, I like this. I think it will create that plan for us.
I think this is a good idea. I think anytime you can formulate plans and criteria and processes in writing, in the public eye, and move forward with this planning group, but I have two comments. One is, there's a reference to establishing a clear criteria, and I was wondering, is that going to be the committee that establishes that criteria? Is that going to be administration who establishes the criteria for entering into the CIP?
I envisioned it as a committee rule.
A committee role? Okay, just for clarification. To Ms. Cook's position on governance, we are a governing body. However, I have to agree with Ms. Hummel and Mrs. Young that I do think having a board as a liaison to the board on the committee would be helpful in communicating what the criteria is to all of us. I think that we all serve on committees and for different reasons and attend different workshops, but having a way that we have a formal way of communicating the work that's being done really helps not to be in the position where we think things are surprises. So if there's a board member sitting on the committee and the committee is looking at these things, we can know the committee's looking at these things. So if we hear about it in the community, yada, 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 like people do, probably not the best thing, but anyway. At least we know this is what the committee's actually doing. Do you know what I'm saying? For the transparency piece of it, so that we don't get trapped into the assumptions and rumors and others about what the committee's doing. I think a liaison person who has a responsibility to communicate back to all board members would be essential for the success of that committee. I don't know that we would bring expertise except for Mr. Kelly in construction, but we could at least help communicate the board and what the work of the committee is. And I think that would be helpful. No, not necessarily. If you're just a note taker, not a note taker, but anyway.
But I also think, because of the way the dates are laid out, the months, that we'll really know, and my assumption is we'd get some information related to these various topics as we're going through the year, so we can, so we build on them. That's what so I like the way that's
yeah, I do like the
laid
calendar.
out there.
I also have a question because of the nature of this committee. Would there be an opportunity, I'm thinking about, specifically about the issues from Lafayette High School. Would there be an opportunity for a hearing at some point once this got rolling so people could come in and have some input into this process?
I think the community input was scheduled after the committee did their work. I didn't consider.
There is a let's talk button.
Yeah, we have a lot of ways people can communicate with us. I would recommend, again, I'm only recommending, that there's a time and place for people to share. I think that committee's work, they're going to have a lot to do in the time frame.
No, I
So
understand
if we want that input, that's kind of why we built it into the September, October timeframe.
Okay, and noting that, if the community input, I mean, they come forth with ideas and suggestions, will that be taken into consideration and possibly change the direction of the CIP?
That's where the partnership between the administration and the school board comes together. I mean, I think we all listen to what that opinion is, and then I, quite frankly, will need to get some direction from the board as to what you think about what you've heard.
Would it be helpful for the board to adopt the criteria, the committee's criteria for how to establish priorities, so that, 7, 9, 10 years down the road, there isn't we don't know how that happened discussion?
Well, the criteria that is being referenced here is what will the committee accept in terms of, we get all kinds of,
Right.
I want this, I want that, I want a new window, and some things are just not considered because they're just not feasible. So the criteria speaks to what will the committee accept as a bona fide CIP project to discuss. That was my interpretation of the first bullet.
So I guess my question is, when that committee establishes its criteria for how they're going to evaluate, could the board at least be, I guess, the committee person, if the board, there's a board committee person, they could share that criteria
Sure,
with us?
yeah, we're
Yeah.
not looking to hide anything.
Yeah, no, I didn't think you were, but it would be helpful.
No,
for
we're
the
actually
board to
trying to
understand
do the
that.
opposite. so.
No, that's trying to make that clear. The other question I have is, I know that working with the county over the Lafayette gym and other issues, is that the county would like us to smooth our capital maintenance projects as much as possible. And they have a strategic plan around facility use. Are we going to have that information as this committee starts to work? That's what
Well,
I'm
and I don't want to speak for the county, but I think what Mr. Hill has requested of me is that we join forces for future capital needs.
Okay.
The faithful in Gould, and there's always going to be, there always has been, let's put it that way, I don't have a crystal ball. There always have been more requests than there have ever been. Sure. So I think that our efforts this year in trying to stick with what we believed was the money that was coming from a portion of the tax increase. So we're trying to smooth that to the degree that we're 100% successful. But in terms of maintaining facilities is different from what Mr. Hill is asking of us in terms of a joint committee to look at future capital needs, buildings,
Expansions, okay.
expansions. So those,
Okay.
we're treating those right now as two
Okay.
different things.
You know, my assumption is, we've got pretty good criteria right now that we use that you use to help make decisions about, or however so it isn't necessarily that we've got to rework the criteria, unless there's some things that you think.
I think the problem that we have is what I just articulated. Our criteria are very broad, and as a result, we end up with lots
So
of
make it-
projects.
so
what
make it more specific.
We're trying to tighten it up a little
Right.
bit because we can never afford what everybody wants.
Right, I understand.
And we're trying to at least come closer.
So the Faithful and Gould is, like you said, a maintenance only, right? It's not getting to what Kira was talking more about, looking at, kind of what the issue has been at Lafayette,
Correct.
kind of an equity of like
No, that-
equity of opportunity and.
That was
all
not,
those.
this Faithful and
Right.
Gould's report was one thing, and that was a 10-year analysis of present systems and what did we need to do to maintain infrastructure at a level that is acceptable to the school board and the community. The comment earlier tonight I wrote down about repurposing, I think is an important comment in terms of looking at space that we have now. Faithful and Gould also made recommendations of how to maintain systems. If you recall, they recommended we hire X number of more people.
Right.
Once again, a little short on cash, but there was no mechanism in place to look at the long-term building needs. And I think Mr. Hill and I have recognized that the school system and the county have issues. I mean, there are needs across the board, and can we do a better job in meeting those needs by coming together? And I've said, absolutely, we're more than happy to do that in terms of future projects. And, it is legally the school board, we don't acquire land, but I think that if we can be at the table to talk about where land might be acquired in the future, that would be a good thing.
To follow up on your comment that this process and the county's process are two separate things, I heard that, but their process is underway, and so.
Okay, well, I'm getting in deep. I don't want to speak for the county. What I'm talking about, Mr. Hill has said a couple of times publicly, and I've responded a couple of times publicly, that he would like a joint structure to look at future building needs. And I said that made perfect sense, and the school system would be happy to do that. The CIP process that is already in place is not part of that cover. I don't know, I don't get involved in the county CIP process. what they do. I know that we want to make sure that there's better dovetailing and better communication. So am I being clear that our conversation is about the future needs of buildings in terms of building buildings or building additions or utilizing space? We now have a CIP process. Hopefully it'll be strengthened. The county continues to have a CIP process. Both the city and the county have planning commissions, they're involved. And we're just trying to find our lane in terms of how do we meet everybody's needs.
And recognizing that what that lane is today may be different in 2 years because, things shift and improve.
It has changed a few times.
Yes, and we've all lived to tell about it. But but I think Mr. Hill, if I've heard him correctly, has said that by the fall they plan to have kind of the pieces together.
Yes.
So are we well suited? Even though I recognize that this is different, it's tangentially related. Are we, ready to snap into that process?
We will show up at the first meeting, I can tell you that.
Dr. Constantino, I just have a question. I mean, if you could just clarify for me. So with the CIP, the Faithful and Gould that you were talking about, that report, when, for example, I'm looking up here, it says Jamestown High School track resurfacing contract. Was that, did the county have to grant us the funds for that, since I'm trying to figure out where this...
It was in and approved in a previous CIP.
Right, but the county did approve it.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Okay, that's where I'm trying, and so then as I'm looking down here, we're going to have at 801.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We're going, I know, but I mean, I'm just trying to, that parking lot improvement and expansion was also part of that CIP.
When you see a CIP up for your consideration, unless it's a special event, and we're going to be talking about one in a minute, but it's always coming off of the CIP, and they'll tend to come at this time of year so that summer work can begin.
Okay, I just wanted that clarified. Thank you.
And usually, if we don't do it, make sure we do, we'll usually tell you somewhere on the agenda item from what CIP this item has been approved.
Right, I've noticed that. Okay, just to get my brain squared.
Yep.
Thank you.
I guess the only comment I have on this, we don't have anything here to vote on, I don't think. I think this is just a protocol that you're showing us that maybe one day we'll put it into a policy, but right now I don't think we have anything really to vote on.
That's fine.
My opinion, I guess I can say strong opinion, is that we should not have a school board member on the CIP committee. It's the role of the administration to develop budgets, both operational and capital. The way our engagement in the operational budget, the way we do that as a group, setting our priorities and given the administration direction, I think is appropriate on the operational side. Maybe have to have something on the capital side for that. I'm concerned that you would have one school board member who's on this committee who may have more influence on that committee and the workings of that committee than the other 6 who are not on the committee. So I would say that we would trust the administration to, take our priorities, implement a capital plan that they think is appropriate, communicate with us appropriately as it's developed. Once, kind of like what they do as we do our operational budget, once that is all developed, we have public comment. We review it, we evaluate it as a group of 7 versus as a group of 1, and then approve it and make it the school board's capital improvement plan, not a committee. So I would say that we would let the administration do their job and do their hard work of developing those budgets, just like we do with the operational budget, and not have one member on that committee who may or may not provide more direction than the other 6 of us. So, we have no power unless we're in a group of 7. I don't think we should divide that group up as I think we should do that as little as possible. Our advisory committees are one thing, but a tactical committee from the administration putting together an operational budget or a capital budget, I don't know that that's our role to be engaged in that process. So I would just ask you to really think about whether you think that a school board member engaged on that is the appropriate role for the school board in development of that budget. So
I'd agree with that. with a additional proviso, is that as long as we are regularly and continuously informed at these various steps along the way, I wouldn't have any problem with that. But I think that's,
Can
it
you
is.
be more specific about that?
Yeah, well, you know, I like the way it's laid out by months. So maybe what that means is that at the, you know, at some board meeting near the end of that time frame, where are we here? Where are we in the process now? What have we been looking at? That's all. I just, you know, I always feel more comfortable, just as, you know, I don't need to be on the committee, but I would like to know
Who is on?
if we have these various sort of stopping points, you know, during the year, where we are, that's all.
Well, for example, under state
Yeah.
of school assessment, May through June.
Yeah.
That should be something that would be brought to the
Correct.
school
Yeah.
board, presented to us, and then we can weigh in on it.
See,
As a group of 7.
As a group of seven,
Yeah,
that's fine. I
so,
mean, as
so
long as-
we, you know, so we don't get surprised. But I really think that would be, you know, that would be.
So how are we
really-
going to
We do that
decide
with lots of
this?
other things, and I just think that's, you know, that
I'm
would be,
seeing it that we're in May to
be
June
good.
right now.
yeah.
I would just like some decision on how are we going to decide, because we've got two opposing views here, and I do understand both, but is this going to be left up to our chairman, or is that going to be determined by the committee, by the board itself?
I would think it's a good time to get a consensus of the board of what they're willing to accept, and that way the superintendent has clarification that we can say,
Thank you.
this is where we are, because it's not fair to administration to leave them hanging
Yeah, I
with
don't
this
wanna
kind of
do that.
discussion. So I would have to say, I like Dr. Beer's recommendation that if at certain points the board is informed, and it could be like a 4-minute presentation, and as far as I'm concerned, to do it in public, which is a good thing, but, you know, if something, issues come up that we need to know about, just, you know, in the notes, just be informed, but being informed so we can know what's going on, so that, once again, it's never good for a board member to go to a football game and hear something that's patently untrue and go off the hook for anybody. It's just, and that's what happens
That
to all
never
of us.
happens.
What?
That never
happens. So it's always good for us to be as informed as we can be. So I would think that Dr. Beer's recommendation is, for me, it's doable. But-
Yeah.
But if you could just poll the rest of us, that would be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I'm good with it, although I'm struggling with the idea of how much we need. I mean, I don't want to hamper the administration's ability to throw everything up on the wall. You know, I mean, I think that,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and so in terms of what gets distilled to us, because at the end of the day,
Yeah,
I presume.
I don't think we want to see the sausage making.
Exactly,
Yeah,
thank
exactly.
you. I mean, I want to,
We just want, we want to see what you're
Well,
doing.
yeah,
we want
because
to
at
see
some
the real
point,
recommendations, yeah.
during that time frame, you're gonna either reach decisions, or, you know, or there'll be agreement on the committee about where we are at that point, and just
Or
let
they-
us
or
know.
they- Or they've reached a deadlock,
yeah,
whatever.
that's all.
Yeah,
I don't
or
need
just
it, yeah,
where they
gosh.
are in the process,
Yeah.
but not
Yeah.
necessarily the sausage content.
No.
No, I don't.
Okay,
I
all
don't-
right, I'm good with that.
Well, I guess the question that's coming out of this is, for the people who want to be on the committee from the board, do they want to be on there for an information standpoint, or do they want to be on the committee to provide input?
I would think, my feeling would be, having served on a CIP committee back in the dark ages, it was really, 2 board members actually served, and it was really only for us to hear the conversation and take it back to the board to say, there's lots of issues to be aware of. Because quite honestly, neither of us knew anything about construction or maintenance or anything else, and Mr. Snipes can attest to that for me. So it was really just for us to have information.
So you were on a CIP committee before as a school board member?
Yeah, a long time ago, we were looking at, when we did that last big facility study, like in 04, 05, 2 board members served on it. And we really just gathered information because really the engineers and the experts were the ones who knew what
I
they were
wouldn't
talking
mind
about.
asking like DBSA, like what, is there like a
Some school divisions have those
School
committees.
division kind of,
Yeah, I mean,
Some divisions also have full-time school board members.
right.
I mean, that's the other piece of why they're on those committees. I mean,
I don't know.
But I think I actually think Dr. Beers, for my purposes, solves the issue with just getting updates.
Getting updates from the administration on how the progress of the committee
Yeah.
and how the committee is moving.
Yeah, I think that works.
My
But I don't know what
understanding,
everybody else is.
my understanding of school board, again, this is my understanding, when we establish a committee for a period of time to solve an issue, I think the board has traditionally, there's been a seat for the board member on some sort of
Task force.
a task force.
Yeah.
Traditionally, this board has not placed a board member on some committee that's going to stand over time. I don't say that because I agree or disagree, I'm trying to think of some things that have board members on them and some things that don't, and I think that's the distinction, although I don't know that there's a process in place that
Yeah, right.
would support that.
Right.
So I guess the question is, where's everybody, Mr. Chair?
Well, yeah, where is everybody? I mean, I'm good getting updates and us working as a group of 7 versus 1 plus 6.
Yeah, as long as there's a clear method of communicating what's been going on.
Holly, where are you?
But what about,
Yeah, I think we just need the clarity and transparency. It doesn't necessarily have to come through one of us.
Sandy, you okay with
No,
that?
I'm perfectly, I mean, especially if a member of the committee, that's, whoever is on this committee comes and reports, or Dr. Constantino reports, or whoever is from his staff, just keeps us in the loop so that we do understand where we are in the process.
Absolutely.
Right. So just keep us in the loop, Steve.
Sorry. Mr. Superintendent,
Got it.
does that work for you? Is that good?
He'll work to the will of the board.
We leave it, it's in your hands then.
As long as I'm in the loop.
Yeah.
Try to do
Often I'm
that.
not in the loop.
and the state of the school's assessment, which is, here we are, May and June.
Yeah, the state of the schools assessment really is a review of Faithful and Gould. We already know the state
Oh,
of the
okay.
schools. I think what that means is, what if something sinks or blows up?
Or falls down.
Or walls
you know,
fall down,
something
or all that
something
good stuff,
different
yeah.
happens as a result of
separates.
inspection or something that has been missed.
Those good things that can happen.
Suddenly now, I'm hoping that the
Separation
state
of
of the
walls.
schools report will be Faithful and Gould is good, we're done. But I don't know that,
Sinkhole
somebody
won't
won't.
appear in a
He had an
parking
air
lot.
conditioning problem that presented itself
Yeah.
during the year. or
So
whatever.
Leaking roofs.
it's fancy language
Okay,
for
okay,
making sure
stop,
that we
stop.
catch anything infrastructurally that has not been already
whammy.
reviewed
Programmed,
by
yeah.
F&G.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so we good? Move on?
Yep.
Move on to 7.03. Can I have a motion for approval of the award of architectural and design services for an auxiliary gym at Lafayette High School?
Oh, come on,
I
Julie.
move- Oh, I'd be delighted to move that we, well, where am I supposed to say it? That we
Approve the
authorize-
award
Approve the award. Where
Of
are we?
architectural and design services.
7.03.
7.03. See, I have to get to the right place here. I'm not gonna officially do it. Gosh.
I'm surprised you didn't have a sticky note.
I know.
Seriously.
Somebody else do it.
Someone else do it, just because.
Mr. Chair, I move that.
Oh, I got it.
Oh, you got it. Okay, never mind.
All right, got it. I move that we approve the award of architectural and design services for an auxiliary gym at Lafayette High School.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Surza, that was two-thirds Julie and one-third, no. Dr. Constantino, you want to talk about this? Ms. Bird is standing up behind you. Do you want Mrs. Bird to talk?
Yeah, absolutely. We're very pleased that we can bring this to the board. As I mentioned to you, we understood the need. Mr. Hill, I'd like to again publicly thank Mr. Hill. He and I have, I think, developed a pretty good working relationship, and we were able to hammer it out, quite frankly. And
Listen easy.
there was a few, but we're there. Ms. Berta can share with you, how we're proposing to fund this portion, and that was to, remember now that this agenda item was written before the county's approval of the gym. So when we wrote to you, we said, if funds should become available. Well, it looks like tonight, I think, that vote will take place. Those funds will become available. So this now is just the first step in a construction project.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Constantino.
Good evening, Ms. Birdie.
We have received a proposal from HBA, who has an open contract with the school division in James City County to conduct this work in an amount not to exceed $222,151. Funding from this project will come from leftover and available balance on completed CIP projects. The first project that funding will come from is the Operations HVAC project in the amount of $101,905.73. The second project that will be used is the Rawlsburg Gym HVAC project in the amount of $44,749.64. The third and final project will be the Toano HVAC project in the amount of $75,495.63. These have been discussed with both the city and county finance directors, and they are in agreement.
Dr. Beers.
Explain to me what an open contract means, and why we don't have to do an RFP.
Because the county and the school division need a lot of architectural or engineering services, they, several years ago, went out and solicited companies. We have several on a list. It is not only solely HBA. We have multiple vendors we can select. And it creates a little bit of an efficiency in that process, so we do not have to go through an RFP process every time we need those services.
And did none of the other, did you specifically go to them, or did we approach any of the other?
No, the rationale was that when discussions about this gym started, whenever they started, HBA was an architect that was initially helping to position the gym. They had information. It made sense to go back to the people who had information and not pay for it again.
So they were the ones that did the original, like, drawings on the napkin?
Right, there were, yeah, I want to be clear, we're not schematic plans, but whenever this conversation was taking place, as you have seen architectural renderings before, they can figure out, yes, you can put this size building here. It's not a design, but it's or you can do this, and so we just went back to the same one.
So this option or this option would be the most cost-effective, the easiest to accomplish, is what they're going to come back and be telling us.
Well, yeah, but the question was why HBA, and because they were involved with this before, it just made sense to keep them involved.
That seems like an awful lot of money. Does it really cost $200,000 for architectural plans?
There you go.
Yep.
Yes.
Architectural plans generally cost about 10% of the project.
I'm going back to school.
It's about 10%.
Oh, wow.
It's usually about 10%.
Okay.
Give or take a few percent.
We're in the wrong business, ladies.
We've known that for a while, though.
Any other questions from board members?
That's true.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
about
For
this.
sure.
Thank you very much, and I know it was a lot of work, Dr. Constantino, and I know it was a lot of, the behind the scenes actually getting stuff done, so I really am glad to be on board.
Any other comments, board members? It's been moved and seconded for approval of the, let me see what she said, approval of the award of architectural design services for an auxiliary gym at Lafayette High School to HBA. Ms. Urza, can you take the vote, please?
Dr. Beers?
Aye.
Ms. Cook?
Aye.
Ms. Hummel?
Aye.
Ms. Minor?
Aye.
Mrs. Taylor?
Aye.
Mrs. Young?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye. That takes us to 7.04. I get a motion for award of the Jamestown High School running track resurfacing project to Centennial Contractors Enterprises in the amount not to exceed $425,000.
Mr. Chairman, I move action item 7.04, award of the Jamestown High School running track resurfacing project to Centennial Contractor Enterprises in an amount not to exceed $425,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Let's have some discussion.
A narrative of the.
Last October, I believe, we brought forward, even before that.
It was before that.
Time has no meaning anymore, this track. The capital improvement plan included a budget to resurface the track of an RFP was sent. All of this is in your agenda. I'm going to give you the treetop version of it. The first contract was canceled. We had to come back to the board to get approval for the second name on the bid list. I think that was the October meeting. We now have learned that that second contractor is unable to fulfill the project. The track at Jamestown High School has to be completed. We expected it to be done by now, but through a series of events over which we have no control at the moment, in order to allow the school to use that track and that area, and it's more than just the track team, I assure you, we are coming to the board with this request for Centennial to get this work done and have this thing operational when it needs to be.
Right.
That's a brief history of a long
history. Any questions from board members?
So I'm just looking at the cost, but I'm just so I can get my head around this. You really want to be in the track refurbishing business, because it looks like the original budget was $164,000. And then we spent $28,000, so we've got $136 left, but now, so Precision Sports Services is saying they'll do it for $425,000?
Centennial.
Centennial?
Mm-hmm.
Centennial is saying they're going to do it for $425,000.
Up to, no, I think the word is.
Up to 425,000.
Up to.
Not to
There are some issues that they have, bless you, that they have determined need attention. They may or may not find those issues, and so there could be some fluctuation. But in order to get a vote and get this moving, I've written an agenda item with the worst-case scenario so that we don't have to keep coming back and delaying the process. Because I'm very concerned that we're up against, this last setback has really put us up against the wall in terms of turning that track back over to the school.
In time for the fall season.
Yes, sir.
Well, let me ask, because for years now, the track has been used by Relay for Life.
They're no longer there. They have another location.
They're in Warhill.
They're Warhill, okay.
Yeah.
So the difference between this, in my mind, is that we have trucks go out for VDOT that put down a low level of tar, and then 6 weeks later, the underlayment is no good, so it all ripples, cracks, and falls apart. So I'm guessing what happened was, we initially thought there was a coating, but now we find that the under and site is not as strong as it needs to be to support the track long-term.
I may consider going into the track resurfacing business myself.
I know.
At the moment, I don't have a lot of expertise in this area.
Yeah.
I'm relying on contractors and engineers who have come in and said,
This needs to be
we
done."
think the scope of this work is more than you first anticipated. My position is, I do not want to hamstring this school any more than we already
Right.
have. So I need to support what I'm being told and
Right.
share that with the board.
Oh, I'm not questioning that. I
Yeah.
think it is.
But I think basically, yes, I think that what was originally thought however many years ago is a little bit more of a complicated, or has become more of a
Well,
complicated.
it's 20 years.
And I agree that we shouldn't, we should.
Just vote.
Yeah, we should vote. I think it's a lesson learned, though, once again, with the whole CIP process, that it is there a lesson learned for choosing some, are there any lessons learned through this?
Well, I
Have
think-
we learned anything through this process?
I
Doesn't happen again, I
Tracks
guess
are
that's what I'm
expensive.
saying.
Tracks are
We've learned
expensive,
that.
we've learned that. You know, our staff we take great pains in going out and getting contractors, we get ideas, we get bids, we get opinions, and we pull all that together. You know, it's just sometimes you get into a project, and this could happen at your home as well. You're going to do an easy remodeling project,
Of your
let's
kitchen,
say.
for
Of your
instance.
kitchen, let's say. And
I recognize that figure.
12 months and thousands of dollars later, it's still not done. Could happen, just saying,
Yeah, hypothetically speaking.
hypothetically
it's like an
speaking. So I think what has happened here is,
Yeah.
this is like a bad HGTV, where we've just found problems now that, and I don't want to take the chance of not dealing with them and have to come back in a year and say, we were wrong. Now we have to rip it up and start it again.
So, how am I going to go about this? So when we did the original estimate, we had an engineering firm, they said this is the scope of work. We put that out for bid, those bids came back, we selected one, they might or might not have gotten into it and said, ugh, and then, so we went to number 2, and they might or might not, they got into it and said, ugh, and so now we're spending almost $500,000 by the end of the day, right, on this track. So how do I know that $500,000 is best value to the taxpayer?
Well, we've heard information, very specific information, which is why we put it in your agenda item, some things that we hadn't heard before. Would it be more beneficial to the taxpayer if we went out for another RFP? I don't know the answer to that question. I do know for this particular situation, this is the recommendation that we're making. This is the resolution to the problem that we can find. I think if I go back to the lessons learned question, I think the next time we start to evaluate a track, we might do it differently.
Right.
Or figure out what went wrong with the evaluation of this project, if it did go wrong, because maybe some of this doesn't exist. Maybe we'll find out that these problems aren't there. We just, until they start getting into it, they really don't know.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if we go back out, if we put out a new scope, put out a new RFP out, go back out for bid, I'm not going to have a track until
No, sir.
August of 17.
It'll be another year.
Because this stuff can only be put down when it's
70
sunny
degrees,
on a hot
right.
day and
Right.
not cloudy and all this other
Right. So as soon
criteria
as we
that they
hit
have.
November, this kind of work stops until we get X number of 70-degree 10 days. I think it's 10 days of 70-degree weather in a row or something like that.
And Centennial has said they can meet our.
Yes,
our
they're on,
deadline.
yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? It's been moved and seconded for award the Jamestown High School running track resurfacing project to Centennial Contractors Enterprise in the amount not to exceed $425,000. Ms. Surson, can you take the vote?
Ms. Cook?
Aye.
Ms. Hummel?
Aye.
Ms. Minor? Aye. Mrs. Taylor?
Aye.
Mrs. Young?
Aye.
Dr. Beers?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye. 7.05, can I have a motion for approval of Resolution R1216, National School Nurse Day? Anybody?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of action item 7.05, Resolution R12 to 16, National School Nurse Day.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing
Yeah,
none.
listen, what I would say, I think our district is really fortunate to have a full-time nurse at every school.
I agree.
I know from past experience, when my kids were little, I know from experiences where my grandkids are in Henrico County, it is so important to have a full-time nurse. I don't think people realize all the amount of things that they do on a daily basis. So I applaud their work, and I'm so glad that we have them.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I have a history there with my mom being the
You sure do.
Health coordinator.
the health coordinator for WJCC Systems for a long time. And I appreciate you saying that, because when I had my kids in a school in Tennessee, they had one nurse for every 5,000 students. And she would travel around and only deal with the worst students. And they had volunteers, people like me, that would basically man the clinic, and we could do nothing for students but give them ice packs and call their parents to come get them. And it was, so yes, don't ever underestimate the wonderful
Absolutely.
benefit of having a nurse in every school.
Yeah, years ago when we were, not that many years ago, but years ago when we had significant budget challenges, one of the proposals was to not have a nurse in every school, and the board was very adamant that we needed to, because just the administration of Ritalin, for instance, is,
Right.
you give the wrong to the wrong, and it's just a bad thing, so.
Yeah, there's just so many things that can happen.
Yes.
So, without objection, it's been, you want to say something?
Yeah. We need to go back to the last agenda.
Well, can I vote on this thing since I have a motion on the floor?
Oh, we
Approve
didn't
this
vote
one
yet.
and then go
Sorry.
back to that
I'm
one?
distracted.
Your phone's buzzing.
What did we just do?
We haven't done anything yet, but we're getting ready
Yeah,
to.
we're getting-
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution R-1216, National School Nurse Day. Ms. Surza.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Ms. Minor.
Aye.
Mrs. Taylor.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye. Now, we are going to go back slightly to 7.04.
Mr. Chairman, members, I apologize. I was so caught up in a track conversation that I forgot to remind you that the motion needs to include your approval of the capital improvement fund balance. So what we would need you to do is just amend the motion and vote on it again.
No.
Can I just move right now for the fund balance and then vote on that? Instead of go back and amend an already approved motion?
Yes.
Sure.
Dr. Beers, my parliamentarian?
Yes.
Good answer. So, so what does my motion need to say?
We approve the fund balances
You're-
for the amount.
Under
We-
cost budgeted, the second paragraph,
You have to do that.
Need approval not to exceed $288,682.20 from the capital improvement fund balance.
Who would like to move that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion that we already had? Been moved in second to approve the fund balance transfer. Ms. Sursa.
Mrs. Taylor.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Ms. Minor.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye. Ms. Birdie, you now have a checkbook. Move on to discussion of proposed agenda items.
Can I ask one favor? I need to plug this in. So just going to be hold for 1 second.
Sure.
Trying to think of where. Just plug
Good.
this.
As he disappeared under the table.
See, I didn't want to do that.
Yeah. That's what he's there for.
Thank you so much.
Discussion of proposed agenda items, 8.01, invitation for bid number 168729, Claire Bird Baker Elementary School parking lot improvements and expansion. Dr. Constantino.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I did such a wonderful job on the last item. I'm going to allow Mr. Snipes to speak to you about the parking lot improvement and expansion at Claire Bird.
Good evening, school board members, Dr. Constantino. This project was approved for the fiscal year 2016 capital improvement plan budget. The scope of the work for this project includes adding an additional 51 spaces at Claire Bird Baker and an additional 3 ADA accessible spaces. We will also be applying a surface sealant to the existing lot. The invitation for bid went out on March 23rd with a due date of April 21st, and the notice of the IFB was posted on the James City County bulletin board, emailed to contractors, and placed on the James City County and Williamsburg-James City County public websites.
Any questions?
Sorely needed.
Okay. You did so much better than Dr. Constantino.
I deserve that.
Moving on to 8.02, RFP number 16-8635, secondary online course curriculum.
Thank you, members of the board. Mr. Chair, members of the board, as you know, our strategic plan calls for personalized learning opportunities for students. Part of that, of course, is to find online content and be able to deliver content in different ways to different students. We're here this evening to introduce to you an agenda item for the secondary online course curriculum, and Dr. McMont is here to take you through that, answer any questions that you might have. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Constantino. I'm here today to speak to the RFP process we followed to find secondary online content. As part of the division's plan to personalize learning and create unique learner pathways, the instructional team began seeking to expand our secondary online course offerings. Currently, we offer 23 different courses in all core content areas, but we have no offerings for students who seek those secondary elective credits needed to meet graduation requirements mandated by the State Department. This alone led us to the RFP process. The RFP was issued on December 3rd, and it was closed on January 29th. We received 13 proposals in all, and each of those proposals were individually scored by all members of the evaluation committee using a specifically designed rubric. The top 4 highest scorers were asked to come and give live demonstrations to all committee members. Based on those demos and the needs of the division, the vendor selected unanimously was Edmentum. In front of you somewhere, you will find a file memo provided by the Williamsburg-James City County Procurement Office. Within that memo, you're going to find vendors that submitted proposals, rubrics, criteria selection, and other pertinent information to the RFP process. As you can see, the cost associated with the product is $80,400, which will give us unlimited student licenses to 48 different CTE courses, 7 world language courses, and 100 concurrent license to an additional 46 secondary elective courses. As you can see, these additional courses significantly broaden learning opportunities for all students in our division. Thank you. I can take any questions you may have.
Board member questions?
I'm just
Ms.
curious about the world language. Will that expand the number of languages offered, or does that just allow different content delivery?
Yeah, it's a different pathway.
Okay.
Same content.
So
It's going to give French, Spanish, and German.
Okay, thank you.
Is information about all, you just kind of listed it out, but I don't see it anywhere in here, right? Am I just missing it? The world languages and then all the things.
All of the courses,
Right.
yes.
Is that in some kind of a,
Actually, yes, I have it right here, but I only have one copy, but I can provide that to you at a later time.
that would be nice, I'd like to see it. And then if it's anything that could be sent electronically.
Yeah, we can do
They
that.
have that electronic?
Well, I don't have it electronic, but I can scan it, I can make it
Oh, I'd
electronic.
hate for you to have to scan, they don't have it?
It'll take,
She's pretty good at that.
Pretty handy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That would be helpful.
Now, I have a question. When you were talking about the evaluation of proposals, the evaluation criteria included instructional, design, content, technology, assessment, and cost. Was there specific instruction given to the people that were evaluating the program so that they understood what they were looking for each
absolutely.
of these?
And it was in the RFP as well. So the RFP had all of the criteria for each of those categories as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there any limit to the number of students that can use it for $80,000?
The good thing is it's unlimited for the 48 CTE courses and unlimited for the world language, which really broadens our opportunities for students and for middle school students especially. Right now, for the additional secondary electives, we're only going to get 100 concurrent license. Now, concurrent license basically means that you can take 3 of those secondary electives as one student. And the reason why we're starting small is because we're not really sure how many students will need the secondary additional electives.
So that, I'm sorry, secondary would be for the high school one?
It's for high school, but depending on the needs of middle school students too, they could take those
They could,
credits as
if
well.
they're moving ahead.
Yes. mhm.
So this option really helps with credit recovery.
It could help with credit recovery for enrichments, for any basic needs that we need in the division. Students who transfer in, for students who are homebound, who need special services. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
8.03, Local Special Education Plan, Title 6B Flow-Through Funds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is an annual document that you see each year. Special Education Annual Plan is an application for the federal funds that we receive for special education under Title 6B of IDEA. The Virginia Department provides each locality with guidelines And part of those guidelines are the school board's approval. So Dr. Barreau is here already. There you are. Hi.
Good evening.
Our Director of Special Education is here to take you through the agenda item, answer any questions you might have.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Constantino. I bring you all greetings from the Department of Special Education, and as Dr. Constantino said, I'm here to present the proposed 2016-17 Local Special Education Plan. By way of background that has already been shared, this is an application for use of federal funds, and it's a regulatory requirement under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 2004. The federal funds that are provided to LEAs, or local education agencies, in this plan must be used specifically and solely for providing special education and related services for students with disabilities. The amount that we ultimately end up being allocated is a formula-driven amount, but they do take into consideration historical federal funding, total school enrollment, and the poverty level. I have shared this plan, this proposed plan, with the members of the Special Education Advisory Committee. However, we will have a meeting on Thursday, and I'll be happy to clarify or answer any questions that they may have. So you'll notice in the plans that you have that there are two separate pots of funds under two different sections. There's Section 611, which pertains to school-age children, so kindergarten through 12th grade, and those students who don't graduate with a standard diploma, and they can access their education up until their 22nd birthday. That's Section 611. Section 619 pertains specifically to preschool students with disabilities. The proposed plan is based on the award amount that we received in 2015-2016. And if you'll look at page 12 and 13, you'll see where it speaks specifically to Section 611. That amount was $1,918,318. Section 619, our preschool pot of funds, was $21,852, and that's located on pages 15 and 16. Now, we have received our preliminary amounts from the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Special Education Programs, and the Commonwealth of Virginia is slated to receive a 3.25% increase for Section 611 and a 3.82% increase for Section 619. So ultimately, what this can mean, translated into dollars and cents for Williamsburg-James City County, is an increase in Section 611 of $103,147 and $2,837 for Section 619. However, again, this plan is built based on a conservative approach. So preliminary means just that. We may get it, we may not. Final award amounts come out in October, and as the Virginia Department of Education says, final amounts come out in January or February. Excuse me. Both funding streams, 611 and 619, are used solely for salaries and benefits of special education personnel. So under Section 611, we are currently paying 19 special education teachers, 5 speech pathologists, 7 paraprofessionals, and a part-time parent resource coordinator from that pot of funds. Section 619, that very small pot, is used to cover a portion of the nurse's salary at the Needs Center. They serve our preschool students with disabilities. So there are two requirements in the plan that I just wanted to mention to you briefly and take any questions that you might have. One is called the proportionate set-aside. And simply put, what this means is the law requires school divisions to set aside or spend a proportionate amount of funds on providing special education and related services to students with disabilities who may either be private schooled or homeschooled at the choice of their parents. The amount for proportionate set-aside, as you'll see on page 10, is $60,921.77. Now, this amount is based off of information submitted to the Virginia Department of Education in December, at which point there were 1,572 students with disabilities, and 49 of those students were either being homeschooled or placed in a private school by their parents. So we do provide direct speech-language therapy to those students, and we provide consultative services to students who have other disabling conditions. So that $60,921, as you'll see in the plan, goes to pay a portion of the salary and benefits for the speech pathologists who work with these students. There's another provision, a regulatory provision that I wanted to mention to you, and it's called maintenance of effort, and it is on page 9 in your plan. Maintenance of effort is another requirement that basically says school divisions have to spend at least the same amount of local or local and state dollars on providing special education and related services from the same source as they spent in the preceding year. So we work very closely and are very fortunate to rely on the sheer brilliance and expertise of our finance department. This is a very complex figure to calculate, and they are nothing but gracious in getting those numbers to us. It takes into account any expenditures or costs that exceed what is provided for regular education to non-disabled students. You'll see on page 9 that there's a local, then a local plus state, then there's a local per capita, then there's a local plus state per capita. So what we have to do is make sure that for the 2016-17 school year, right now these are estimates and projections, that we are spending at least as much or more in at least one of these areas. We're very fortunate that in 3 of the areas we are exceeding what we spent in 2015-16 school year, and in one area we come up about $23 shy. But again, you only have to meet that requirement in one area. So we are good. The timeline for, again, final notification of the award is in October, but pending your approval, I will electronically submit it to the Virginia Department of Education. They'll give us an approval, and we begin using those funds on July 1. The grant runs for 27 consecutive months, so all allocations have to be spent by September 30th of 2018.
Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, so many.
Your reference to sharing, it's been shared with SEAC and your meeting Thursday. If they have any feedback, would you care to be sure to bring that to us on Tuesday? Any kind of feedback?
I certainly, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Appreciate having that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other board members have any?
Well, it's an observation that our planned local plus state next year estimate is $18,793,309.59. And from the federal government, we're anticipating a big, what was it?
A whopping 1.9 million.
Yeah. Okay. So when the IDA was passed back in the dark ages, the federal government at that time assured the localities and the states that they would maintain a match of IDA funds of at least 35 to 40%. The state then came along and said that they would also be willing to provide a 30 to 45% assistance to localities. So what you're now telling me is the federal government is about 10% of our, 10%.
They fund approximately 18%. 18%. And full funding for the federal government was to be that 40%, and they're at 18%. And this was at the inception of the law back in 1975.
Right.
Yeah, and then there was a plan to, slowly scaffold into getting to that 40% over 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, they've been going the
And
other
it's
way.
been much longer than that.
They've been scaffolding. They've been scaffolding the opposite direction.
They
I
have.
understand. Yeah. Okay.
Are you suggesting we send them a bill? Is that what you're?
I think that providing the services are essential. It's the right thing to do. It's the moral thing to do. That the federal government came to that recognition in 1975, yay for them. However, it would be nice if when they create all these mandates, they actually lived up to their promises to the localities and to the students that are impacted by this. It was just an observation on my part.
Yes, ma'am.
How many additional teachers beyond the number that you gave that escaped my older mind at the moment, do we pay with local and state funds?
So locally funded is 96 teachers, and then we have this additional 19.
19 that are federally
Yes.
funded. Okay.
I'm just curious, can you tell me a little bit about that interagency agreement? I know we have a juvenile detention center down, down 143.
Yes.
How do we fit into that? And terms of cost, and do we, who provides the teachers or the educators, and I am kind of interested in
Yeah.
that, seeing how that works.
So we have a separate grant for that. We do have a teacher, and part of her salary is funded by us, and part of it is grant funded. She does work with students who have reached 18 and over. The provision for that is the students have to want her
Sure.
educational services,
Sure.
and not all of them take advantage of.
How is the curriculum, who decides on the curriculum or how that operates down there?
Well, depending upon the academic level and needs of the students, they could be using the, secondary curriculum, but most of the students who, my experience, who have taken advantage of those services are really working at a more remedial level.
Sure. And it's one teacher?
One teacher.
Now, the others, because I know that other districts also participate
Joe.
in that. Do they also pay for?
They send their
other
own teacher.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. I'm just curious about that. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you for the good work in putting this together and for all the good work that you do for our
Thank
students.
you.
I
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate the effort that goes into this. So, $8.04.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the Carl T. Perkins Grant, or the Perkins Act, is similar to what you just did. This is a yearly document that is prepared by staff so that we can access funds for the Perkins, from the Perkins Career and Technical Education Act of 2006. And here tonight to talk to you about that and take any questions is Helen Manns, who oversees all of these programs for us, Coordinator for Career Readiness and 21st Century Learning. Ms. Manns.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Constantino, good evening.
Evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to share information with you about the 2016-2017 Carl Perkins Local Plan. The Carl Perkins Career and Technical Education Act provides federal funds to increase focus on the academic achievement of CTE students. It strengthens connections between secondary and post-secondary education, and it improves accountability on the state and local levels. Perkins funding supports the following program areas: business and information technology, family and consumer sciences, health and medical sciences, and courses are offered in the division as well as New Horizons. We also offer marketing courses, technology education, and trade and industrial education courses are offered at New Horizons. A current list of our course offerings under each program area are in the 2016-2018 Program of Studies. Perkins Funds requires that we meet or exceed a number of performance standards for all CTE completers and special populations. For the 2014-2015 school year, we were able to meet some of those performance standards. We did not meet the following: the student competency rate. The state set a percentage of 87%. For all completers, we reached 56.63%. And for special populations, we didn't meet, but it was at 56%. Now, the student competency rate is based on students achieving at least 80% of their required competencies in each of the CTE courses. Special needs students are rated on the same scale, but only on the competencies that are listed in their IEPs. Special populations is defined by the State Department as students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, including foster children, individuals preparing for non-traditional career fields, single parents, single pregnant women, displaced homemakers, and individuals with limited English proficiency. And a completer is defined as a student who has met the requirements of a CTE course sequence and the requirements for high school graduation.
Can you take questions now, or you want to take it?
Till the end,
Okay.
please. Thank
Yes,
you. Also, we did not meet the secondary placement rate, which is 91%, set by the state.
We met it for all completers, 93.81%. However, for special populations, we had an 84.21%. The secondary placement rate simply means CTE completers that successfully transition from secondary school to employment, military, further their education, or full-time or part-time employment. And this data is captured on our CTE follow-up surveys. Sometimes we find that the phone numbers change when we're trying to reach previous graduates. Addresses change, and also parents are reluctant to provide us with the information that we need to report to the state. Non-traditional career preparation completion rate, the state set the percentage at 25.50, and we had 0%. We had enrollment, and it showed up on our student enrollment demographic form, but our student information system did not capture that data for the preparation completion on the final completion demographics report.
Can I ask a question? Could you go back to the... Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I missed that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
One challenge in capturing, let me go back. One challenge in capturing CTE data for accuracy has been the data integration from a previous student information system to a newer student information system. So with the assistance of the IT department to improve the performance levels for next school year, a process is now in place, and we are manually tagging specific CTE data for reporting purposes. So the first step was that we established an Excel spreadsheet. We have forwarded this to the teachers to tag special populations, competency attainment, and if applicable, co-op students in their classes. And once those spreadsheets are completed by the teachers, they will forward it to me for review, as well as the IT specialist. Step 2, the Excel spreadsheet will be sent to the school counselors for their review and input of CTE finisher codes, CTE career cluster pathway, and completer status for our students. And then finally, the third step is that the CTE data captured on these spreadsheets will be sent to the data entry specialists at each of the high schools to enter this information into Synergy, which is our student information system. So with this process, we should see an increase in those performance levels that we did not meet for school year 2016. The Perkins Plan requires that we submit a new plan of study each year, and we are submitting 2 plans, one under the Health Science Career Cluster, and the career pathway is Biotechnology Research and Development, and another is the Science, Technology, Engineering, Math Career Cluster, and the career pathway is Engineering and Technology. We are expanding our Project Lead the Way program at War Hill High School, and we'll be introducing 2 new courses, Introduction to Biomedical Science, as well as Human Body Systems. And I want to add that last year, the state approved our plan of study for a marketing career cluster, and the career pathway was Hospitality and Tourism Career Pathway. So the new course that we'll be offering for school year 2017 is Opportunities in Hospitality and Tourism at Jamestown High School as well as Lafayette High School. We are measured in industry certifications, and for the 2014-2015 school year, students earned 509 certifications, and out of that 509, 462 students, earned 1 or more credentials. And the list below are state-approved industry certifications that we offer to our students in the various CTE courses. To help students achieve industry certifications to meet the graduation requirements for a standard diploma, beginning with next year's graduating class, every student enrolled in economics and personal finance will take the WISE financial literacy test. And we anticipate an increase in the number of certifications earned for this year. I also want to reiterate some good news that in regards to the WISE financial literacy test, Jamestown High ranked number 46 in the top 100 best WISE high school in teaching financial literacy. So we're really ecstatic about that news. The Perkins budget expenditures, 62.5% was spent on equipment. We purchased 3D printers in our technology department, including Project Lead the Way. We purchased some tablets for a new software engineering course, and we will be upgrading computer labs as well as software to keep up with industry needs. 17.4% are purchase services, and we spent funding for professional development for teachers to attend their professional organizations. A portion of that is sent to the Regional Technical Center for students that attend courses there, and student activities such as the Youth Career Expo at the Hampton Convention Center. Indirect costs and other charges, 17.4%, and personal services, 2.6%. We're allowed up to 5% to hire either a full-time or a part-time person to help us manage the CTE data for state reports. CTE student organizations, we have 2 active chapters in our division, one of which is DECA, and DECA is located at Lafayette High School, and we have an active FBLA chapter at Jamestown High School. So students get to compete at the regional, state, and national levels, and they have been very successful in that area. Since school year 2013-14, we have received an increase in Perkins funds, even though we have not met all of our performance standards. So each year we've had an increase, and for the school year 2016-2017, we're estimated to receive $133,835.87. So I wish to thank you for your support of CTE programs in the division, and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Dr. Pierce?
I was curious, I forget which slide it was, the reading and the math performance, they exceeded the state's requirement, and then, but they didn't make it for the competency. I forget which.
Student competency rate?
Yeah, where it was.
Oops.
There it is, right there.
Oh, right
I think I
there.
just got it, yeah. I'm surprised. Can you have any reason, or I guess the other question is, are the same students in those first 3 categories, are they the same students in the first 3 categories? In other words, the ones who got 99 or 98 in reading and math, are they also in the student competency rate? Or are they totally different kids?
I would say no, because the student competency rate is based on students in any particular CTE course meeting 80% of the competencies for that particular course.
Okay.
And I think there they mentioned English 11 for those that obtained the reading performance levels.
Do we know the ones who didn't make the student competency rate, how they do, or how they did in reading and math?
I do not have that information.
That'd be interesting to know. Okay.
Any other? Ms. Cook?
So, thank you for explaining the process so that we no longer see that 0%.
Yes.
But, do I understand correctly that Synergy doesn't align with the expectations of BDOE through this application? Is that in short what the situation, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
I think it's a question of being able to program the system so we get the information. I don't think it's incompatible, because if it were incompatible, 3/4 of the state would be in trouble. I just think that's got to be a tagging issue locally that we can repair.
Right, and we're working on that, and also they are making updates to the system, and we're building that platform so that we can have this data captured for reporting purposes.
Thank you.
Mike, thank you for your presentation. Ms. Hummel and I attended the meeting where we reviewed the report, and we did have concerns, and Ms. Mance has addressed them and how to resolve that, so I appreciate that that was done. It's a challenge to try and contact students after they graduate, and so if we don't tag them before they leave with good information, it's almost impossible to get the data. But I do have to say, the fact that we had such high attainment in English and math, and then competency rates is puzzling.
Very much so.
It's really, there's a disconnect, there's a significant disconnect with that. So I would think that, yeah. Because they went on to be complete, I mean, we had good results in the credentialing test, so it would seem to me that they should be fairly competent.
Yeah, that is kind of.
There- It's an
disconnected.
outlier, it just doesn't make, yeah.
Seems a little disconnected.
But we don't know.
Who they were,
ones
which
who-
students are,
Right,
yeah.
who didn't reach competency, how they did in reading and math.
Right.
Or is it another data problem? Is that the one we didn't determine that was a data problem also?
The non-traditional career preparation on the second slide
pretty
was
critical.
a tagging issue. Because
That was a
the
tagging issue,
Yeah,
but the 54% was not a tagging issue, it was just, it's an issue.
It's an
So we
issue.
can drill down and we can find.
It's just an issue.
It's just an
It's an
issue.
issue.
But what I did want to clarify to all of you guys, that regardless of the tagging issue, it has not affected our funding. Is
Right.
that correct? And I just wanted to make sure that all of you know that. That was a concern for both Mrs. Minor and myself, and we were glad to know that
Yes.
plans have been put in place for the tagging problem to be corrected, but that ultimately it doesn't make any difference as far as the money that's coming into the school system.
so far it has not. I did call to check on that because I was concerned that we haven't met those specific measures. And they said it's a possibility that we could lose funding, but so far we have not.
Oh, so it, okay.
So, and the other thing is, we have a number of students who are getting multiple certifications, which I think that's, to me, that's very positive. It really
Yes.
is. It's good.
Yes, and our numbers of enrollment in career and tech ed programs has increased as
Sure.
well.
Good, good.
Another question, and this is maybe more for Dr. Constantino. So you've got these great funds, and they're going to, it is going to Project Lead the Way. And I think Project Lead the Way is a wonderful, wonderful program. And I just am wondering when that Project Lead the Way could potentially be branched out to Jamestown and Lafayette.
That's a great question. With the exception of division programs, we have not been in the business of telling principals what to do. Principals and their staff set their own strategic plans. They have their own vision for what they'd like in their schools. And as a result, different schools have different programs based on the needs of their students. So Project Lead the Way was not a mandate of the central office. It was the desire of War Hill to have the program, much as they've desired to have other programs, similar to other programs that I can think of in certain elementary schools with, of course, I can't think of one off the top of my head. Give me a minute and I'll think of it. So the answer to your question is, if the day comes where the division is interested in expanding that program, that's a very different conversation than a school that desires to have something. If we could have a school tomorrow, this has been a conversation in past years, for example, where why hasn't the division expanded the international baccalaureate program into middle and high school? It's a great question. Part of the answer is, the recession hit and there were financial issues.
It's expensive.
But generally speaking, the principals, and I'd like to commend them because they have taken ownership of their building improvement plans, their strategic plans. They involve their faculties, they involve their communities and their kids in the high school level. And they decide, what is best for them. So I don't have a specific plan to expand War Hill's program. Now, there can be a different division conversation if there's that interest, but at the moment, I want to make that distinction.
Do parents themselves, if they feel like, oh my gosh, I would love for my child to have the same opportunity, can the parents themselves, talk to the administration of that particular school to say, we really think that there's momentum here, there's enough people here that would sign up for this to make it a go? Is that something that could be a grassroots effort at the
Well,
different schools?
every school has a improvement committee upon which parents are invited to sit. And so every school that submits a plan to us, those plans are reviewed at least at the mid-year by myself or Dr. Herron at the elementary level. And then we'll use those plans as a basis, much like we use the strategic plan, their plans as a basis for certain aspects of evaluation and planning for the following year. So I would hope that if parents have an interest at a particular school, that they already have a voice, but if they don't feel they have a voice, certainly contact the school and say, hey, this is something we're interested in. Historically, the division has struggled to replicate programs, the same program across all the schools due to finances. And I know there have been some occasions where the division couldn't afford X, Y, and Z at every school, so we would offer it at a school and allow students to take a course, transport them back. And so there's some precedent for that. But again, I can't emphasize to you enough that the plan that we have in place is for the schools to kind of own their own destiny and what is best for their, I don't really want to be in the position to dictate. I trust principals and teachers who live in a building every day. I don't. To say this is going to be good for our school. And if another school came up to us and said, hey, we think that would be good for our school, we would do all we can to support that, obviously.
Thank you.
Man, it's good to have the building administration and the faculty bought into a program, like they are.
It's where we get the most success, when
Right.
everybody is collaborative.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mrs. Mans, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mann.
I see the policy committee has been somewhat active.
Oh, my goodness.
Well,
So
next month, we're taking it easy on
They're
you.
trying to keep us employed. So 9.01, retire policy BA board operational goals.
Do you want me to introduce the policy subcommittee to you?
No, I don't.
Let them talk about the
I
next
know who
11
they are.
items.
I know who they
We have
are.
their names and phone numbers.
How would you like us to
Just
proceed?
keep going.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to?
I'm not there yet, go ahead.
Okay, so the 9.01, the policy committee is recommending retiring this policy. It has no VSBA model, and because we now have a very active strategic plan that is adopted by the board, and we're about to go into another process of getting a new one of those up sometime soon, we figured that was the vehicle for the board to set direction for the division and for goals of the division. So,
Okay.
okay.
None yet? Keep going.
Okay. 9.02, powers and duties. So it's updating to align with the VSBA model. And there's a little bit of a review from our attorney that you can see in blue.
Sorry, this is 9.02?
Is that right? Am I in the right place? Yeah, BBA.
Yeah, 9.02.
Yeah, BBA.
Okay, got it. I was on the wrong one, sorry.
So it's, and I just point out that the VSBA model does not include the first three bullets. And so I always like to point out when we are different than the VSBA, I like to kind of point out why in the first three are select, appoint this superintendent, approve and submit a budget to our funding bodies, and adopt policies, which kind of seems like our three most important jobs. So it's kind of weird that it wasn't in there.
Right.
I'll make no observation about VSB and policies.
Yeah, well, right. So,
I do think if you look at the NSBA, that some of those bullets, clearly the budget one is a bulleted shall.
right. So anyway, I'd just like to point out when we are different from.
So, let me make sure I understand what we're doing with these. Some of these things that are crossed out, are they found in other policies?
Yes.
That's what I want.
Or in code, or in SOP.
Because I'm looking at some
Well,
that I want to make sure that they,
or some of them aren't applicable anymore. I mean, for example, we're going to
but I'm
come
looking
to
at the one about school boundaries and, that sort of thing. Is that going to?
Are you-
Redistricting, is that going to be located?
Which number, are you on 902?
I'm down, I don't know, I'm
She's in the.
5, 6,
He's on
7.
his own place.
He's in the middle.
What, are you on?
I'm in the
School
second
board
one.
governance?
Yeah, I'm on the
And
second
you're on
one.
BBA?
Code, the BBA,
Okay,
right,
so-
section B.
Okay, so what line, Jim? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
there are a couple of them there.
This is the one he's looking at.
I think 6, and I don't know, 7, I'm more concerned about 6.
Which is,
To provide for the redistricting of school boundaries. Do we have that in our policy?
Okay, sorry.
Is it this one?
no, he's looking at.
I think you're, so it should be BBA Red Line PL 2016 PDF,
It's
right,
the last
Janet?
one, it's the last one in line. That has the
third one, second.
blue writing on it too.
Which?
She's
Well, I'm in the second.
So there's nothing red line, I mean,
Well, I'm in the second one, and it's all red line.
okay.
Right, he's
All I'm asking-
ABA.
It's the third one in line you want.
Yeah, I just want to know, if we cross that out, is that found in another policy about redistricting,
Yeah, there's a separate redistricting.
which is
policy.
always a very hot topic.
That's a good one, yeah.
I just want to make sure it's in there somewhere.
There is
That's all.
setting boundaries.
I like the understanding and sympathetic flow of information between the public.
The new one, the one that that was changed, if you go down to line number, where is it? I just had it. Is it line 23? You'll see where it talks about provides for the consolidation of schools or redistricting of school boundaries or adopts pupil assignment
Okay,
plans.
okay.
Yeah, it's in,
Good, good. Okay, that's all I want to know.
thank you.
Yeah.
Took us a minute to find
We
it.
didn't ignore it.
Okay. So
We're
anything,
not going to do that anymore.
And thankfully, we have people that are
gonna
smart
advocate
working
that,
with us.
One version out.
okay, so,
Whatever your final recommendation is, rather than the others, would be helpful.
okay,
Cut down.
did you hear that, Janet?
Sorry. Rather than putting out let's just bring forward the recommendation, the final, the one that you all agreed that works the best.
Okay,
after
so
packet
for
reviews.
each one of these.
Yeah, rather
So
than.
maybe better, maybe more clear labeling. of
Yes.
this.
So we'll be doing this at a meeting.
Okay.
That would be great.
So is that okay with 9.02?
Yep.
9.03, policy BCA. Just updates it with the,
Right.
what the organizational meeting is. So it's
Yep.
pretty simple.
Just the one question, do we need to say January 1st because that's when we do it?
We do
Or
it.
we do an organization meeting? Because she said Williamsburg, James City County will hold an organizational meeting annually.
Annually.
Or do you want to say January 1st because that's practice and tradition?
Well, it's not January 1st.
Oh,
It's
First
the
meeting in
first
January.
meeting.
First meeting in January?
Yeah,
Line 39.
Does it say on line 39?
yeah. Held in January. Does that meet? Is that good? Okay.
Might want to put it- I would think it would be clear being put at the front.
You want it up top?
Yeah, just.
Janet, did you get that? Got it. Okay. All right. That's 9.03, putting 9.04.
Bless you.
Bless you.
This one was shortened. If you just look down at the bottom, all of the things that were on top were basically removed. The parliamentarian was removed because that's not in Virginia code, so.
But it is in the SOP.
Yeah, it's in the SOP.
But it is in the SOP. So,
Yes. Well,
so,
yeah, it continues on in the SOP, but in this,
So, which leads me back to the SOP is not policy,
it's agreed upon practice.
it's agreed upon practice.
Right. The code doesn't require that you have a parliamentarian.
And some boards don't, and some boards hire one that's not on the board. I mean, it's all.
Right, one of those
but our
magic
board-
parliamentarian people.
Yeah, but our board has one. And we'll continue to have one per the SOP.
if you go into 905.
Yep.
So we're going to drugs and, what's the next one?
9:05.
So now we're getting out of our territory into staff's territory, so
Okay.
I'm going to toss it back.
Thank you for
to-
that.
Dr. Hare.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Constantino. This evening, we're asking you to consider revisions to several policies. There are 3 under the area of instruction, and the first of those is policy IGAG, teaching about drugs, alcohol, and tobacco. This has been revised, consistent with current VSBA policy. It's been reviewed by our attorney and obviously reviewed by the School Board Policy Committee. The revisions are really just the adding of a line at the back, at the second part of the policy, stating that each student will receive instruction concerning the public safety hazards and dangers of alcohol abuse, underage drinking, and drunk driving. That was not originally in the policy.
Okay.
The second policy for your consideration this evening is policy IGAH, family life and sex education. Again, it's been reviewed by our attorney and the School Board Policy Committee. Mainly changes updating the language of the policy, retitling of the policy, family life education instead of family life and sex education. And the other are just changes in language to update the language of the policy as recommended by the attorney.
Okay.
And the third instructional policy tonight is policy IGAI, character education. And again, the policy has been reviewed by both our attorney and the School Board Policy Subcommittee. And the proposed revisions are in the wording of the policy, again, minor revisions to the wording. And
Good.
updating language.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next.
Mr. Chair, the next set of,
Yeah,
Good afternoon,
probably
Mr.
that.
Chair. Good afternoon, evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairman,
It is
members
night.
of the board, Dr. Constantino. I'm here this evening to share 4 policies that are in our Section J, the students section, for your consideration. Just as a generalization before I get into the specifics, each of these policies has been reviewed by our attorney and has been presented to the policy committee, and none of these policies currently have a VSBA policy to match it, so there will be no reference to that. The first one we are recommending to retire is policy JECDA, assignment of secondary students to out-of-district programs. This policy was specific to the School of the Arts program that we have students at Bruton. And it's not, as I think somebody mentioned earlier, it's not a policy that currently has been followed because they're following the application procedures developed by the School of the Arts. And so this doesn't fit their application procedure, so it just is an outdated policy. Our students still have that option, it just doesn't follow this procedure.
Right.
So. The second policy, JFE, was first adopted in 1974. It was regarding allowing pregnant students to attend school. All students are eligible to attend schools if they meet our enrollment policy, which is JEA. So this is a moot policy. The same for policy JFF about married students that was also first adopted in 1974. So we are recommending that both of those policies be retired. Finally, the fourth policy is JJJA, the policy on voluntary random student drug testing for middle and high school students. This policy was originally adopted in 2006 at a time when the school division had a grant to pay for this random drug testing. The grant ended, and the school division continued to pay for it out of general operating funds for a number of years. What we had seen over the past 6 years was a decline in the number of families choosing to participate. The contract for this with Bacon Street ended during the 2013-14 school year. We chose to extend it for one more year, so we did do it last year for 2014-15. We only had 126 students submit permission to be part of the random testing. There was a 0% positive rate, which is pretty consistent. We had a 3.3% positive rate the year before and a 3.7 positive rate the year before that. So we were seeing a very low incidence of students testing positive and an ever-decreasing number of students participating in the program. So we did not choose to submit an RFP to continue with this program for this school year. We have not received any questions regarding that.
How much were we paying for the program before?
Last year was $5,040. The year before was $7,200. The year before that was $6,759.
Okay. Any issues with? Nope. Okay. Does that bring us to the end of the?
Yes, thank you.
You guys don't have anything else to do?
Thank you. Well, thanks to the staff. I mean, seriously, everybody
they do
was
most
really
of the work.
fabulous, so.
Okay, 10.01, board members' comments. Ms. Young.
Okay, one of the things that I would like to bring up, because I think we as a board need to decide what we're going to do about Rawlsburg. We need to decide if we're going to have policy written, if we're going to decide to have a work session and discuss it. But I think that issue is on the forefront of many people, many members of the community's mind, and I think it needs to be addressed.
And Dr. Constantino, Dr. Constantino, I know you have been working on looking at policies, or not policies, a process for consideration of name changes and that kind of thing. Would you be prepared at our next meeting to put it on the agenda as a discussion item where you can tell us what you've got and get some board reaction to that? And I know I'm catching you kind of off guard on that, but I think it's something.
Well, the answer is always yes, of course, Mr. Chair. I will draw the board's attention to, I think I sent you a note this week about 2 distinct directions, and we would benefit from some guidance as to how to proceed.
I don't remember seeing that. But can I make a recommendation? We've had people from the community that have volunteered. Mr. Smith, who came and talked about his fraternity, not fraternity, please don't tell him, it is fraternity, who would like to have some input on that, and maybe Mrs. Hurd, who is here, who also has volunteered to have some, and Lafayette Jones, and but maybe I don't know how that works, Jim. So
yeah, I think the administration should bring forward a process to us, and then and if you're looking for that direction for the 2 different ways, I think
We'll just put it in the form of a question.
Put it in the form of a question, and we can discuss that at the next meeting, and kind of get some direction as to how we can go about addressing that issue. So I think it's time to have that discussion. Probably past time to have that discussion. So we'll let the administration bring forward to us, and then we can comment and get public input as a part of that, and move forward in a considered and considered way with that issue.
yeah, sooner rather than later.
You said May 24th?
Yeah, I can't do it any sooner than the next meeting. Right, good. Anything, Ms. Cook?
Yeah, I'm very supportive of changing the name of Rawlsburg. But I'm also equally supportive of creating a comprehensive policy that focuses on how we name or rename schools. I don't want to just do it arbitrarily. I'd like to have a policy that is broad enough that would take into consideration, the kinds of things that we're trying to deal with right now, so that we use that as a bank, as something that we use in the future.
Well, the VS.
So we don't have to, it doesn't have to be a separate thing with each school, but what we have is, built into the policy criteria that are appropriate when it comes to renaming the school.
Right, and VSBA does have a policy,
Yeah.
so we could take a look at that.
And other school districts have them, I don't know, and they're also, are dealing, have dealt with this as well. The only other thing I would like, I'd like to, I guess sort of request is, I spent a long time at the DOA website, and really looking closely, and being very much impressed by the Pathways grant proposal that I saw. But I have since learned that there are changes or anticipated changes in some of the language and some of the elements in that grant or that proposal, which is no longer a proposal, it's a grant. I would like to see a copy of where that grant is now in terms of what's been taken out, what's included, that sort of thing. I'd just like to know, so I know what I'm operating with, okay?
Yep.
That's really all I have to say.
Okay.
I would have to, first let me just say that I did bring for board members, I attended the VSBA superintendent's evaluation session, and I realized that there was a change in the criteria in July. I have the superintendent's memo, which I was going to share with you, Jim, but I also have the framework. I made a copy of the framework I can give to all board members. So it would be good if we could set those dates for that process so that all of us could be present and have it on the calendar and no one excluded. That's the one issue. The second one is you very kindly solicited from members what we thought were important topics to discuss, and I do hear that staff says we need to be able to do our work, but we also need to be answer some questions, partially because it's a new board and we need to know things just because we need to know to understand and be more effective. So what I'd like to say is some of those topics can take place as part of the normal routine of the school division, like if we're talking about changing discipline policy, which we tend to do in July and August, if my memory is correct. If we could also take a look at what our discipline is like in the schools, because another VSBA conference talked about Virginia won the high honor of being the first in the nation in passing students from school to prison. And the good news is we weren't in the largest offenders. The bad news is we weren't in the people doing the best job. So I would think it's important that we know where we are and what staff is doing to address that, so that that's an important topic for the superintendent of schools, and it's an important topic in adjusting our dropout rate. So if other board members are interested, I'd be really interested in that being part of the discussion around the discipline code in July. I agree with Dr. Beers, I forgot your name. Must be really late. Dr. Beers, I'd love a work session around, I don't know that I need to see the whole new project written, but I do think a really good work session about where we as a board need to change some things or pick policy or do financing or budget transfers or whatever needs to be done. We could have a work session around that at some time appropriate, probably not the next meeting with all
A
these.
work session around what now again?
The pathways, just so we all come to a
pathways.
mutual
Okay.
shared understanding of what's going to take place and how that's going to work. And then my final plug again to the public is May 17th. There'll be a presentation on pathways for parents and, I guess, nosy school board members to attend and find out more about. That's it
You
for
need to
tonight.
say where.
At War Hill High School, I'm sorry, 6:30.
Okay. So I am delighted we're moving forward with the Lafayette Auxiliary Gym. It's a project that's been a long time in the making, so it's very exciting that we're moving forward with that. So thank you, everyone, for your work on that. And to echo some other sentiments, I agree that we need to move forward also with the Rawlsburg renaming, taking the next steps to gather some information. One of the things we might want to look at would be the financial ramifications of such a change that might be of interest to us as we're moving forward with that. Also, something that was of interest to me that I heard this evening was the differences in programming between our schools, such as we're having Project Lead the Way. And I can see both sides of that coin. I can see some parents seeing that as an inconsistency and a disadvantage to their children, but I know as a former educator that them giving us programs to do that we don't necessarily want to implement or have that extra time to coach our staff and whatnot would be difficult. But that's just some food for thought there.
Julie?
I agree with Mrs. Young about moving forward with the name change, putting it on the agenda, having the discussion, and just moving forward with this. So I agree with that. I also, once again, very glad that we were able to work through everything with the auxiliary gym, and we were able to really make some progress for the athletes and people that do extracurricular things at Lafayette High School, and also with looking at a long-term strategic plan for the use of Building 900. That's something else I would like us to look at and not kind of forget about, and fold that into a strategic plan with the CIP and actually strategically looking at it. So that's it.
Okay. Kira?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank both the City of Williamsburg and James City County for the joint meeting. I thought it was really productive, and I appreciated everyone making it a priority to be there and to participate in that conversation, and also the subsequent scheduling of liaison meeting. I think that's a really positive forward step. So I appreciate that there was such quick follow-through. And then, of course, both of the localities, primarily with the leadership of James City County and working with you, Dr. Constantino, to figure out how to take the auxiliary gym to where it needs to be. And really, I think at the end of the day, James City County is embarking on this process, and this project sort of interrupted that process. But I think we all know that at the end of the day, when that process was done, Lafayette would have been at the top of the list, right?
Yes.
So kind of scooting it in before the process and recognizing that was really wonderful, and I'm very excited about that and grateful to the partnership that the leaders of the localities have embarked on, because that does not happen by accident. It happens with a lot of hard work, and so I appreciate that very much.
Okay. Good. 11.01 upcoming meeting. School liaison meeting, May 13th, 4 o'clock at Building D at James City County Government Complex. This board will be represented by Mrs. Cook and Mrs. Young. VSBA webinar, equity policies, May 17th, room 203 here at the school board. Retirement pin ceremony, May 19th at the William Mary School of Education. I hope all the board members can attend that who are in town, unlike me. But it's a really great event to recognize our long-term teachers who are choosing the path to retirement. VSBA Law Conference on June 3rd in Charlottesville. GED graduation, another great event, June 9th at Jamestown High School, 6 p.m. at Jamestown. I always look forward to that event. NSBA Advocacy Institute, June 12th through June 14th in Washington, D.C. We're going to let the policy committee do more work again, June 14th. Policy committee's meeting at 1:30 on June 14th, and
Anyone's welcome.
and lo and behold, graduation's June 18th at William Mary Hall. So there's one morning, noon, and afternoon. So
Do we know who's going to the law conference and to the Advocacy Institute?
Not me. I think we're going, I know I'm going in
Dr.
June.
Beers and Mrs. Young are going to advocacy.
I'm not sure about the law conference. Just you? Okay. Our next meeting of the school board is May 24th at 6 o'clock. Closed session in the Stryker Center, the City of Williamsburg. So that'll be our first meeting in the new Stryker Center, with a regular meeting following that at 6:30 in City Council chambers. And then on June 7th, we have a closed session at Building F in the county complex, starting at 6, and then a work session at 6:30 in the boardroom at Building F on June 7th. So, Ms. Surza, I think we know the agenda for our next meeting.
Yes, sir.
So with that, thank you all for your good work tonight and comments and participation. So,
Excuse me, quick, sorry. Sorry. I've just read this again.
What's this you read?
12.01.
okay.
Okay, category, set agenda for regular meeting. Board sets agenda for the next regular meeting. When does that occur?
That's, it just happened, because you see the proposed items that are on the agenda, which was 8.01, 8.04 through 9. So those will all be on our agenda for the next meeting.
Okay, wait a minute. 8 point,
The one that's labeled proposed agenda items.
All the policy.
Oh, right.
And the other, and the
You're right.
RFPs.
I got it. Just
And-
like to, just want to make sure I understand the language.
And the final budget approval and salary scale rate.
Yeah, because we're, gotcha.
Will we be able to do that?
Final budget approval and salary at the next meeting too?
Carry on,
Or
Jim.
will we need a special
The
meeting?
second meeting in May is, we're on a timeline that this county Board of Supervisors should be meeting and finalizing their budget tonight.
Yeah, tonight.
And once that's finalized, we have to come back to you before the end of May with a restructured budget. And at that time, you'll get all the personnel.
Okay, so that will be on our agenda.
That's
as
going to be
well.
on your agenda on the 24th. And you've also asked me to put an agenda item on to discuss Rawlsburg.
Yeah, discussion agenda item for that. So we should have had the budget in as a proposed agenda item?
We could.
Could have.
Could have.
Okay. All right. Good. With that, before any other comments, we're adjourned.
Quick calendar.